of Adjustment meeting. It shouldn't be too long. I'll call the meeting to order. Note all members of council are present. We have a resolution to approve the agenda.
Moved by Councillor Hatfield. Councillor Rees. Resolved that the agenda for the Committee of Adjustment meeting scheduled for Tuesday, August 11th, 2020 be approved.
All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Any announcements? Seeing none. Declaration of pecuniary interests? None. Approval of minutes? The resolution for that, or we're just
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Moved by Councillor Hatfield, seconded by Councillor Tate. Resolved that the following minutes of the Municipality of Wawa Committee of Adjustment be adopted as presented. Minutes of a Committee of Adjustment meeting held on Tuesday, April 21st, 2020, as contained on pages 1 to 3, inclusive of the minute book.
all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Nothing under old business. New business 7.1 to appoint acting secretary treasurer. We have a resolution.
Moved by Councillor Tate, seconded by Councillor Chason. Resolved that the Municipality of Wawa Committee of Adjustment does hereby appoint Ms. Maury O'Neill as acting secretary treasurer.
All in favor? Carried. Thank you. 7.2, approve the actions of the acting secretary treasurer. We have a resolution.
Moved by Councillor Chason, seconded by Councillor Rees. Resolved that the Municipality of Wawa Committee of Adjustment does hereby approve the actions of the acting secretary treasurer with respect to the notification of the following applicant. 1A-1/20, Mr. Harvey West, for a minor variance application to increase the maximum height permitted for a building being 14 feet and 6 inches to 28 feet to permit the property owner to construct a storage garage on the subject property. The property is located at 306 Wawa Avenue, located in Mitchcott River Village, described as Plan M26, Lot 25, lots 12 to 17 and 30 to 44, part lots 23 and 24, part Wawa Avenue, part Lane, and are 8313, parts 12, 16 to 21, 29 and 37, parcel 467, 19, 1261, 2,320, 2,532, 2,534 in the municipality of Wawa in the district of Algoma.
Thank you. All in favor? It's carried. 7.3, the minor variance application resolution.
Moved by Councillor Rees, seconded by Councillor Tate. Resolved that application number A-1/20 submitted by Mr. Harvey West for a minor variance application to increase the maximum height permitted for a building being 14 feet and 6 inches to 28 feet to permit the property owner to construct the storage garage on the subject property located at 306 Wawa Avenue be and is hereby granted for the following reason. No objections were received.
Are there any questions? Is Kevin on the line? No, okay. So no comments. Yes.
One comment, the old building that's on that property, is that part of the property? The old,
I don't know the answer to that.
No, it's not. It belongs to,
okay, so that property stops before
yeah,
that.
where the house is, that's front, and this way.
Okay. So I'll call the question. All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. Adjournment. Do we have a motion to adjourn? Sorry, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Moved by Bill Chason, resolved that the meeting be adjourned at 6:34 p.m.
All in favor? Carried. Thank you. So we'll move directly into the corporate planning meeting. I'll call the meeting to order and note that all members of council are present. Disclosure of pecuniary interests.
I have one, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
I, Councillor Rees, declare a potential deemed pecuniary interest on item 7.4, water valve replacement.
Thank you. That's duly recorded. Approval of the agenda. I need a verbal. Moved by Pat to approve the agenda. All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. So we're ready for the presentation on the draft asset management plan. Jason, if you're ready, then we'll have our presenter as well.
I will be ready in a minute. I'm going to share.
Maybe we all have paper copies. Right?
Okay, I'm ready on our end.
Perfect. All right. So you guys can hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Perfect. Well, good evening, Your Worship, council members and members of the public. My name is Matthew Smith. I'm an asset management consultant with PSD. It's a pleasure to be here with you tonight virtually through the joys of technology. Definitely a shame I couldn't be there in person. I was just spooling up my fishing rod a couple weeks back and thought it wouldn't it have been nice to get up north to Wawa and get in an extra long weekend trip or something like that, get some fishing in there. But I'll be presenting your municipality's 2020 asset management plan today, something that we've been working on over the past about 6 months with key staff at the municipality, getting input, building out, an enterprise asset management system. So I'll do my best to make my presentation reasonably short and sweet. As I understand it, you guys have quite the packed agenda today. You can follow along, obviously, using the slide numbers in the upper right-hand corner. So I'll do my best to call that out when changing slides. Moving on to slide 1, then we'll go to the next slide. Just a little bit about PSD as a company, so the company that I work for there. So we have our head office located in beautiful London, Ontario. We have satellite offices in Burlington, Ontario, and also recently opened in Victoria, British Columbia. We specialize in kind of 3 different fields, all within the municipal realm: research, consulting, and software. My division is the consulting division. Also been working closely with our software division to implement the municipality's new enterprise asset management system. So we have expertise across all 3 fields. We specialize in municipalities. We build our software based on the feedback of municipalities. We have several former municipal employees on our leadership team and as staff today. So it really is our bread and butter, and certainly working with small and rural municipalities is how we got our start as well. So it's been a pleasure to work with the municipality of Wawa there. Moving on to slide number 2, so just a couple quick slides on asset management, just to make sure that we're on the same page with what we're talking about here. So it comes as a surprise to no one. Obviously, municipalities own assets, and they own those assets to provide services to the community. So, of course, roads are a vital component of the transportation services that are provided. Storm sewers provide stormwater management services. Buildings provide recreation facilities, administration and operations center as well. And these assets have a cost throughout their life cycle. And it's not just the cost of construction or procurement. Sometimes that's a fraction of the total life cycle cost to own, operate, maintain those facilities, and ultimately replace as well. Because as you guys well know, assets deteriorate over time and eventually need to be replaced. So asset management is really about planning for assets, making sure we have a financial strategy, a life cycle management strategy, and that we take into account the idea of risk as well. So there are several different types of processes and strategies that apply to asset management. We typically look at value in asset management in terms of 3 key concepts. So what's the cost, what's the risk, and ultimately what's the level of service provided to the community. So usually it's all about money at the end of the day. And I'm not the first consultant to come in and tell you that. I'm sure that's the case. But it's the reality that most municipalities just don't have enough money to fund the regular renewal, rehabilitation, replacement of infrastructure. So when there's not enough money in the capital or operating budget, it's going to lead to a higher level of risk exposure across your asset portfolio and likely a decrease to the level of service you're providing to the community. When you have more money, it should lead to a decrease in your risk exposure and an increase in the level of service. Those are kind of the 3 interconnected pieces of asset management. I'll move on to slide number 3. And here, just stating the goal of asset management, really we're looking at long-term, high-level life cycle planning across the entire life cycle of assets. So it's not just looking at the next 5 years, not just looking at the next 10 years, it's looking life cycle of all the infrastructure that we own. And we want to make sure that the infrastructure that we manage is managed at the lowest total cost and risk to meet the desired level of service of the community and also through the direction of council as well. And it's not just about managing infrastructure. It's not just about what we do to infrastructure. It's not just about the maintenance of it. It's also about managing systems and services. It's about making sure we get a return on our investment there. And ultimately, it's about supporting our organizational objectives, which might be laid out through a strategic plan or otherwise. Okay, I'll move on to slide 4 there. So a couple of years back, the province, in all of its supreme wisdom, passed OREG 568/17, and this is the most recent regulation on asset management planning that all municipalities in Ontario are responsible to follow. So within the past year or two, you guys likely would have seen an asset management policy come your way, developed by staff, which outlines kind of a high-level framework for asset management. And what we're focusing on now is kind of 3 different iterations of an asset management plan. The first of which is due by the latest by July 1st, 2021. We have far exceeded that timeline, which means you guys are in good shape. We have made sure that the asset management plan we've prepared today meets all of the provincial requirements in 2021. So there's no scrambling last minute. You guys are well ahead of the pace, well ahead of 95% of municipalities in Ontario who are probably scrambling now to get things together, to be honest. And there's a few different iterations the province is looking for. So in 2021, they want at a minimum core municipal infrastructure assets. So that's roads, that's your bridges and structural culverts, that's your water, sanitary, and stormwater infrastructure. And then everything else is considered non-core. So those would be your vehicles, your machinery, equipment, your land improvements, and your facilities. So we've met all the requirements for core municipal infrastructure categories. We've also gone above and beyond to include analysis for non-core infrastructure as well. And it's also been a key component of the long-term financial strategy that we've recommended too. So the next update is in about 3 years at this point. What we've really tried to focus on with this asset management plan is providing staff with some key recommendations to continue to improve confidence in the accuracy and reliability of asset management planning. So I'll move on to slide number 5 there. And this is just a general overview of what an asset management plan is and what this document actually tells you guys. So first and foremost, it's going to give you an overview of the current state of infrastructure. So what is the current condition of our assets? How much service life is remaining? How much would it cost to replace it? And it also talks and deals quite extensively with what's the municipality's financial capacity to meet not just short-term capital requirements, but also long-term capital requirements as well. And finally, taking all that into account, in our work over the past 6 months, working closely with staff, we've been able to identify several recommendations to continue to build out confidence in asset management planning and decision-making. So staff are taking a lot of great steps to implement an enterprise asset management system to start to collect some better data that will have more confidence in moving forward as well. And we've made incredible strides over the past 6 months. So definitely shout out to all staff involved there as well. But this is kind of the whole point of the asset management plan. It's not just about, what's the condition of our infrastructure, how much money is required. Those things are very important. But also, what is our plan moving forward next year or the year after or the next iteration of the asset management plan? Asset management plans are only as strong as the work that you put into it in the 3 to 5 years prior to developing it, right? So it's not the sort of thing you just worry about 6 months before you want to get an asset management plan done. It's about thinking about what sorts of proactive, strategies and processes can we put in place today so that when we update our plan in 3 years, we're on a better footing. You move on to slide number 6 there. I'll get into a bit of analysis just about kind of our findings in the state of the infrastructure section of the asset management plan. So of course, we start first and foremost with the total replacement cost of the asset portfolio. It's always nice to know, how much is our infrastructure today in today's value in terms of its replacement cost. So we use a combination of unit costs developed and reviewed in comparison to similar sized municipalities and geographic proximity. We've had great conversations with staff to make sure that these costs are reasonable, that they align closely with recent cost of capital works, and we've come to a total of about $134 million. So it's a combination of, and in some cases, it's inflation of the historically recorded costs for those assets as well. But all of the replacement costs are in today's value, so $134 million overall. You can see water network and sanitary sewer network or wastewater network are kind of those highest value asset categories, and buildings, road network, and storm kind of in that middle tier, and then some more non-core assets as well as bridges and culverts in the lower value asset categories there. So when you extrapolate that to how many households were recorded in Wawa in 2016, that's a total replacement cost per household of about $116,000, and that's significant. And this is something we see quite frequently with smaller municipalities is, you know, the potential for being overburdened as taxpayers to support infrastructure, whereas larger cities can spread around those costs between a larger commercial and industrial base. Sometimes smaller municipalities, yourself included, don't have that same luxury. So that's why putting in place strategies to maintain and manage infrastructure makes a lot of sense. I'll move on to slide 7 there. So this is just an overview of the condition of infrastructure by asset category. Okay, so we've used a combination of some recent staff assessments and also age-based estimates of condition within the plan. You know, condition really is the backbone of asset management. You need to know what condition your infrastructure is in to plan for the future. Sometimes it lasts longer than you expect it to. Sometimes it doesn't last as long as you expect it to. If you're relying on age-based estimates of condition, there's a lot of uncertainty that comes along with that. So one of the key recommendations in the plan is to continue to work towards implementing a condition assessment strategy at the municipality. So I'll talk a little bit about that later as well. So when we started, there wasn't much condition data. So we were implementing a brand new enterprise asset management system. So working through staff to take, you know, the results of your most recent OSIM inspection for bridges, some road network condition assessments, and then also some cursory assessments recently completed by staff as well. We've used that to kind of augment the condition data within the document. Now, this is going to be changing over time and improving over time. There are going to be asset categories here that you're not going to have complete faith in condition data until you have some more substantial condition assessments completed. You outline your condition rating criteria there. So certainly take it with a grain of salt. It will change as the internal processes adapt as well. Okay, taking a look at slide 8 then. So this is a similar type of graphic, again, broken down by asset category, just looking at service life remaining. So it's weighted by replacement cost. It tells you what percentage of assets within each asset category have no service life remaining, what are within 0 to 5 years of the end of their service life, what have 6 to 10, and what have over 10 years. We've chosen 10 years because the province has recommended including 10-year capital cost projections within the asset management plan. But of course, our full analysis is based on the entire life cycle of the asset as well. So you can see in the table below that overall, the average age of assets weighted by replacement cost is about 40 years. It's pretty old. That takes into account a lot of subsurface linear infrastructure like water mains, sanitary mains, storm mains, many of which were put in back in the 1970s. And many will start to be reaching not the end of their life, but over time, over the next 20 to 30 years, you have to start looking seriously about putting strategies in place to fund larger scale replacement of subsurface linear infrastructure. And we're seeing the average service life remaining weighted by replacement cost is about 20 years as well. So for vehicles in this case, sometimes the graphic is a bit misleading. The typical useful life of a vehicle, for example, that we've used in this asset management plan is about 5 to 15 years, whereas for water network infrastructure, if we're looking at water mains, it's up to 75 years. So, you know, this graph, you know, if you're looking at it without the proper context, you might think, oh, wow, vehicles are in pretty rough shape. And they might be, but it's also a reflection of what the useful life of these vehicles are. So most vehicles are going to have less than 10 years of life remaining because they might not even be expected to last that long to begin. Moving on to slide 9. So slide 9 is on forecasted capital requirements. So for every asset in your asset inventory, we have an in-service date. So when was it constructed or procured? We have a projected useful life or an estimated useful life. How long is that asset expected to stay in service? and we have a replacement cost of those assets. So with those three key pieces of information, we can identify what the average annual capital requirement is across all infrastructure. So this is just capital, and what we would project is an average annual capital requirement of just under $4 million. So that would be $3.8 million. Now your eyes might be bulging out of your head right now. This is quite common. I'll get into it in kind of the subsequent slides. You're not spending this much money on infrastructure currently. The classic approach to asset management is, again, you take the in-service date, you take the useful life, you see how many years have passed, you take a look at the replacement costs, and you start planning for the future. But through the use of condition assessments, you might realize that some of these assets are actually lasting a lot longer than we thought. So you might be saving money in some years just based on completing condition assessments that give you better information-based planning and decision-making off of. So this is over, the graph is kind of 5-year chunks over a 50-year period. You can see that, we're starting to see a spike in costs in about 20 to 30 years here. So a lot of that, I think, is due to subsurface linear infrastructure that's going to be reaching its end of life, as well as a handful of buildings as well. So the key is to identify this, and this is quite a few years out now, and start planning for it now. So how can we spread those costs out on an annual basis so that, the burden in a particular year, our capital spending is more constant and doesn't see those kind of peaks and valleys that you might see on this graph here. So this isn't your capital plan, this is a projection, but it helps to identify where are the big peaks and valleys, where are we going to have to start planning for spending, higher than average money in future years, and start to put in place a financial strategy. So I'll move on to slide 10 there. So this is, taking that information and also comparing it to a review of your current capital funding, your current budgets and capital spending. So what we've done is we've broken it down by tax-funded assets compared to rate-funded assets. So on the rate side, your water and sanitary assets; on the tax-funded side, everything else. So we have annual requirements split up between both. And what we've also done is taken a look at recent budgets to get a sense of what sources of revenue are put towards capital spending and which of them are sustainable. So the financial strategy we've included is only based on currently sustainable sources of revenue, right? So we're not taking into account one-time grant application is a good example, or money that you might receive on occasion but not regularly. So we're looking at things like property taxes, we're looking at things like user fees and rates, we're looking at sustainable grants like the federal gas tax, for example, and OCIF, Ontario Community Infrastructure Fund funding as well. And so what we've been able to identify is how much sustainably per year, taking a look at the past few years and working with staff here to confirm, are we spending on this infrastructure, and what's our deficit there? If we compare that to annual capital requirement, we're seeing an annual capital deficit of about $2.8 million. And again, that's a pretty scary number. It is very common, and it's certainly even more common among smaller and rural municipalities. So what's required here is essentially a financial strategy to close the gap between the capital requirements and the funding available. And the reality is you're probably going to be relying on federal grant programs and transfers from both the federal and provincial government for the considerable future. So I'll shift into slide 11 here and provide a bit more detail. The financial strategy itself, again, is broken down by tax-funded assets, and then we've broken it down between water and wastewater on the rate-funded side as well. So we've taken a look at what you're bringing in through your tax levy as well as through water fees and through wastewater fees. We've taken a look at the extent of the infrastructure deficit, and we've been able to calculate a total tax or rate change across these categories. So what we've done is identified across tax-funded assets a total tax change of about 29.6%. On the water side and wastewater side, it's a bit more, 96.4% and 62.7%. But of course, that's on a lower total amount of money collected. So in absolute terms, you can't necessarily compare against all three here. So what we've done is turn the annual tax or rate change that we recommend. For tax-funded assets, that's at about 1.5. Water, wastewater, yes, it is 4.8% on the water side, on the wastewater side. Because it's challenging and is a significant burden, we recommended a 20-year phase-in for eliminating which we think is pretty generous, and we anything beyond 20 years. You're going to be reevaluating on a regular basis. This isn't something you're stuck with. It's something that, as your understanding of changes, replacement costs, how this number might change. But these numbers are also important to show the provincial government where there is a deficit and where you guys do need some additional help as well. So our hope is that this will be a good message to the provincial and also federal government that you will need to continue to rely on grants and transfers to sustain municipal operations to a certain extent. Now keep in mind that total tax and rate change is purely for capital. So any additional costs related to increasing operations costs or inflation would be in addition to that. So when we say 1.5% per year for tax funded assets, that's an increase of 1.5% that would go directly towards capital spending. So of course that's pretty significant. We do, and in my final slide after this, I'll talk about some of the project prioritization processes and really just asset management processes that you should also consider as a key component of the asset management plan. It's not just about the money at the end of the day. The money does matter, but it is also about what sorts of strategies we can put in place. So on that last slide there, slide number 12, these are the key asset management program recommendations that we've made through the development of our asset management plan. So step number one is it really is a lot about the data that you guys have. So the continuous refinement of asset inventory data is critical in having confidence in the accuracy and reliability of long-term planning. So some key things we identified is building out a sidewalk inventory, having a component-based inventory of facilities. So facilities, instead of thinking it as one big unit, it's actually composed of composed of major components. So it has a roof. The roof might last 20 or 25 years. It has an HVAC system. It has structural and architectural and electrical components. These are all replaced on different schedules. The way the inventory is set up right now, it just treats the building as one asset, which has a 50 or maybe a 60-year lifespan. So having a more detailed inventory there will help. Again, continuously reviewing replacement costs is key as well. So recommendation number 2, and this is really a big emphasis, implementing a portfolio-wide condition assessment strategy. So how often are we assessing our assets? According to which criteria? Whose responsibility is it? Is it internal staff, or do we need to bring in an external consultant in some cases? This is going to be key moving forward, and it will help you to better rationalize the total cost of kind of capital requirements moving forward as well. And of course, reviewing backlog assets. So those assets we've identified as past, they're likely they just need an inspection. In some cases, they might still have life remaining. We just might not have that data available right now. We'd also recommend expanding the capital planning horizon. So this is going to vary by asset category, but certainly a 5 to 10 year capital plan in place. I know that staff has done some great work in that area already, but we would recommend certainly identifying those capital requirements coming forward over the next 5 to 10 years, starting to think about the revenue sources that you can rely on to meet those needs as well. Part of it's and also an evaluation of levels of service. So this asset management plan has kind of met the requirements from the province as far as levels of service and measuring a few key performance indicators, but it hasn't gone too in-depth in this area yet. What you're going to have to do moving forward is take a look at not just your current level of service, so what is the average condition of our roads, for example, but what's our proposed level of service? What do we want it to be in 5 or 10 years? And once you know that, you can have a better sense of what are the actual capital requirements to meet that proposed or target level of service. So in some cases, it might be reducing a level of service. If you don't have enough money, you're not going to meet the capital requirements, where can we find cost efficiencies? Where might we be able to reduce the level of service while still maintaining the great community that we maintain and operate today? And then finally, it's all about continuous improvement and regular review. Okay, so this isn't just a one-time thing. It's an ongoing effort that takes the collaboration of departments, the organization, and that's really going to be. So on that note, I'll wrap things up. I hope I didn't bore you. I was able to provide some. And certainly there's more detail in the report itself. It is still in draft stage. We're going to be for the next subsequent weeks. If you have any questions, I'm happy to take those now. And any additional comments, please send it to Cindy or Maury on to me subsequently as well.
Thank you, Matt, and I'll open it up to questions if there are any member of council. Matt, I had a question with regards to, we have an I read through it yesterday. I like the details. I don't know about the numbers. If inflation goes up in the next few years, that's going to be very challenging. But at the same time, it means that our staff will have to look at our assets in a different way, and looking at them in terms of minimizing risk, maintaining them, reporting when we get new assets, that everything gets back into the plan, and the plan is updated, on a daily basis, in a sense, if a new item is introduced into the system. Do you deal with any of that in terms of actual training once you've created the plan to help the staff make it work?
Yeah, absolutely. So, we kind of had a two-pronged project. So in addition to the asset management plan, we're also implementing an asset management inventory or management system at the same time. And so there's going to be training provided as part of the inventory management component there. But we can also provide training as to, really any concept we've dealt with in the asset management plan. We do quite a bit of work. We have what's called kind of a 2-year asset management program development roadmap, where we can go through things like developing a condition assessment strategy. We can talk about developing proactive lifecycle management strategies, identifying some key risk management processes. So we do work in all those areas, as well as keeping your inventory up to date, making sure you know how to manage the system itself. So we will be providing some training on the system itself, but anything related to the report that you guys need assistance with, we're more than happy to work with you as you move through it. And really the key there is making sure that you can reach self-sufficiency at a certain point. We don't want it to be a situation where you always have to rely on a consultant to come in. I know that might hit our bottom line at the end of the day, but really that's the emphasis behind providing both the tool, so the system itself, and the report. It's not just a report that you have to, bring in a consultant to do every 3 to 5 years. Everything we've done in the report is a product of the system that you guys now have access to. So learning how to use that and leveraging it is going to be key moving forward.
Thank you. The other question, as we move forward with this plan and both the provincial and federal governments come up with the COVID-19 pandemic recovery plans, I almost see the two clashing, that there will be, a need to provide funding to help with a lot of the spending that has taken place over the last 5 months, and will continue probably for a few more months. So how resilient is a plan like this to something major like and its financial costs to provincial and federal governments, and how that will impact monies being transferred to municipalities?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a great question. When we started the asset management plan, we were still in, I guess, pre-COVID days, and it wasn't really much of a consideration. Now, it certainly is a big concern for municipalities across the country in terms of the hit they're taking to their bottom line. And the primary response from the province and the federal government is in terms of kind of helping to address the gap in operating funds. But there hasn't been too much on the capital side, which might be, like you said, a bit in conflict with at least what we're trying to push for with this asset management plan. At the end of the day, the numbers in the report are still the same, but you might face even greater challenges in accessing sustainable revenue sources that you can put towards capital funds in the short term, as you still need to recover deficit incurred from COVID and hit that pad on kind of your revenue sources. The numbers in the plan are the numbers. Certainly, the considerations of kind of the impacts of COVID to the province and the federal government going to take there is support on the operating side. If so, I'm not imagining that they're going to increase spend and capital side to make that money municipalities. So we'll have to wait to see how things evolve over time, but it's certainly a major foundation for asset management planning moving forward.
Thanks, Matt. I just want to remind the council to have any questions or comments. As Matt said, it's still in draft form, that you can contact Cindy here at our office and speak to her about it. So again, I want to thank you for your presentation. It was very clear. Thank you again also for your work, an excellent plan. We look forward to putting it into operation here in our community. So thank you. If you have no further comments, we'll sign off now with you and carry on with our meeting.
Yeah, thanks so much. I just wanted to say, just kind of signing off, it really has been a pleasure working with staff to pull this together. We've got a great team of individuals there who are dedicated to municipal management, and we'll be wrapping up our project over the next few weeks. But please do provide any sort of feedback that you have. We'd be happy to hear that, and we'd love to continue our working relationship with you guys at some point in the future if you see a need for that as well. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Matt. Good night.
Take care. Bye.
Thank you, Mayor. And to just finalize the discussion, the draft plan is included in your agenda package. Please review as the mayor indicated and provide any comments to Cindy or I by next Friday. And then the plan will be submitted to council at the next regular meeting scheduled September 15th for adoption and approval, which of course is a condition of the grant, but also something the municipality would want to
Okay.
occur.
There's
Thank
only
you.
one thing I don't understand, Mr. Mayor. The percentages of what taxes and sewer and that can go up, is that what we have to do, or is that something we have to work with?
Well, he's recommending that if we want to meet the deficit over a period of 20 years, you would set aside 1.5% for tax, and that's not counting what you would normally raise to cover your cost of living expenses and operating and maintaining the municipality. This would be 1.5 would be monies that you would set aside for some of these projects. And as well, because you don't fund the water, wastewater from the taxes, but from the users, that is a greater cost. So they're looking at the, was it 4.8 or 4.3 and 3.8, something like that.
That's what
So they're recommending that as an annual increase for those in order to meet.
That's over and above. But it's over 20 years.
It's over 20 years.
Mayor, I have one question.
Yes.
The third piece there, the software, that's the big piece of this asset management, because I'm familiar with it, just put a word from warehouses and different companies. Are we planning to move ahead to have a program and like the CMMS or like an SAP or Maximal or something of this thing? Because if we implement this and get this all in storage, but we have to have a system that's going to flag stuff or work orders or tell you what your stuff is costing you. That's a big part of this whole success to this asset management.
And so as part of the agreement with PSD and what they provided, part of it was providing the software. So we already have the software and a database that we're going to now use regularly to update work orders. It's aligned with the GIS system, so also GIS maps are produced that will also include the updates.
Yeah.
I'm not sure Cindy or Jason, if you'd like to add more to the software we're using.
Yeah, we use Esri is the top leading GIS software, so we've had that kind of infrastructure database for years now. But what we'll be able to do moving forward is, like what you mentioned, with any changes or updates and connected to our financial system, being able to have the two of them communicate with each other, and that's going to be the
Thanks.
Good. Thank you very much.
Just one more question. Maury is at the anyway, they will do infrastructure on the road system. And the underground 4 years away to get in place. Get all that in one shot then, or we have to wait until the streets.
Well, in the report where they talk about, they say that it's far more cost effective that if you plan on paving roads that you would dig up old pipes. Now, the project we have now on Mission Road, unfortunately, it was just surface stuff, and there was no funding to deal with the underground infrastructure. So again, that's something that the report talks about. It is that we could talk about the percentages that we have to put away, but as we move forward, there will still hopefully be various government programs and grants that we may apply for certain projects. And when we do, it would be best to deal with it, because you can see by the report that changing our water pipes throughout and most of our underground services are the oldest in the community, and we will have to deal with that. So moving forward to item number 5, the adoption of minutes. I got a vote verbal moved by Bill that we accept the minutes from our Tuesday, July 14th, 2020 meeting. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Business arising previous meeting a COVID-19 update. That's verbal from Maury. Did you want to just speak to where we are with the municipality of COVID-19?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. And on behalf of staff, we are working hard as a group to prepare for the reopening to the public of our municipal facilities that include the municipal building and the community center. I'm reviewing currently with staffs our protocols and policies that we'll bring forward to council to look at, for example, having the council chambers open to the public for the next council meeting scheduled September 15th in place. And those protocols will include keeping the 6 feet physical distancing measures, and maybe asking people to advise us ahead of time that they want to come to council. Some may have to wait outside and come in when there are topics on the agenda. So that's just one example of the plan that we're preparing for. And we plan to reopen to the public on Tuesday, September 8th, immediately following Labor Day. Alex is on the phone, I believe, and he'll talk specifically about the plan that he's prepared in draft to open the community center. But before I call on Alex, I just wanted to share with council, because there is some correspondence on your regular agenda tonight, but the government passed the Economic Recovery Act on July 24th, when it declared the emergency over in the province of Ontario. In that Economic Recovery Act, the authority and permissions for council to hold electronic council meetings ceased. And that's why all of council was asked to attend in person today. And we have asked council on the regular agenda to consider having a special council meeting next Tuesday, where staff is recommending that council amend its procedural bylaw to permit electronic meetings to continue in the future, which the province has amended the Municipal Act in the Provincial Economic Recovery Act to allow municipalities to do so. So that would come forward at the special meeting next Tuesday. I would say that has worked very well for the municipality. It's also allowed our residents opportunities to follow on YouTube. So I think it's increased the participation and civic participation in what we're doing, and also to see those recorded meetings after the fact. So I'll be bringing that forward to council at a special meeting planned for next Tuesday. Other than that, we are blessed and grateful that our district is doing very well with COVID-19, while it still remains at 0 cases, and we keep in contact with the Public Health Authority on regular meetings, emergency management meetings every second week. One is scheduled again next week, and they keep us up to date on all the procedures, protocols, and have really been really good resource for us when we have questions about how we reopen. And on that, I think Alex has talked to them the most as he prepares to reopen the community center. So Alex, are you on the line?
Yes, I'm here.
Please go ahead. If you can, sorry.
Did we want to put Corey on first? Was there a request?
Oh, well, he's part of the COVID-19 update.
Oh, that's the COVID. Okay, go ahead.
If you guys want, I also included a whole section of my monthly report about it then too.
He can give a COVID-19 report update to council as part of his monthly report, if you'd like to.
So we moved to 7.2 then. So we'll just put you on hold for a while, Alex, and Corey has something to attend to later. So we would let Corey go ahead with 7.2, 7.3, and 7.4. If you wish to speak to those. Start 7.2, 7.3. Let us know when you get to 7.4 because Robert's declared a conflict on that one and he will leave the room. So go ahead, Corey.
Thank you, and sorry for the inconvenience. I appreciate allowing me to jump ahead here. With my report, the monthly report for the past couple months, we've been working to limited staff due to station time, but we've been managing to get the number of we have to do regarding routine roadway grading, gravel, pothole repairs, etc. We've done some culvert installation. And moving forward quite well, schedule with our plan for the summer. Just an update on water and sewer. We started Alwyn back in July. We've seen excellent results. We've had about 50% reduction of PHM since we've implemented the Alwyn, as well as we have noticed our pH level drop from 8.2 to 7.4, which is about the when pH is high, we tend to have a higher use of chlorine for treatment. So the more we can get pH range in the average, it allows us to use less chlorine to get the same results and continue the residual filter system. Moving on to our project, went well, connecting links. We've already paved missions. There's one left to do. We have Main Street to work on over the next course of the week. We'll to get some asphalt on the intersection of Broadway and Main. We need some curb limits down Main. Due to the weather and contractor dedication, we believe that we'll be able to finish this project in September 2020, which is excellent news. We've been working on consulting with the school project. There will be more to come over the next few months of consultation and other conversations regarding that. For the AVGAS tank and water valve replacement RFPs, those are separate reports I'll discuss next. Landfill, we've been reviewing designs moving forward and back and forth communication with the ministry. I'm optimistic that we can get green light to go and move advancing hopefully by fall and continue forward with that one. Any questions on the monthly report?
No questions. Go ahead. Keep going. Go ahead.
I just wanted to add Tamarack Road. We've decided that over the course of the next 2 weeks, we will be filling off the chip seal that was currently there. When it was done, it was expected to last approximately 10 years. So that would be about 2017, to my understanding. This year has trouble maintaining the road with patches as it keeps punching out in several locations on a regular basis. We decided that we were going to peel off the chip seal on Tamarack from government where the grindings were made up to 2 years. And although it may be gravel for a bit of the summer as we work with staff availability, we are going to be putting grindings down and packing them and rehabilitating that roadway section. Can we move on to the airport RFP?
Yes, please.
The airport update is regarding the AVGAS tank. In 2019, we had inspections done on systems. noted that the interior tank of the in-ground avgas tank started to erode on the inner lining. It was only a matter of time until this erosion could increase further environmental impacts such as leaching into the ground. No signs of that has occurred yet, but it was approved by council to remove the in-ground tank and replace with a above-ground field system. Given the approval to move forward with capital, staff went out to RFP. We received RFPs from 3 different companies, which were evaluated by 3 staff. Through the review, it was decided that the overall competence and the contract for this to be Northwest Facility Equipment with an overall score of 5.3 out of 100. The above ground tank budget came in under budget. So I'm requesting the approval to move forward with this project to replace the ADVAS tank at the municipal airport for approximately $180,000, which was the approved capital budget.
Okay,
Could I just ask a question?
yeah, we have one question from Councillor Matthew.
Yep.
I didn't quite understand what you're doing on Tamarack.
Well, on Tamarack, so
Oh, yeah,
currently Tamarack is a chip still, which is like a tire place on top of the roadway. It just held up for quite a few years, but I'm sure as you know, if you've perhaps driven down Tamarack, there's potholes occurring on the regular, I believe, but we can't keep up with maintaining the cost of road patch, et cetera, would be extreme at this point. We decided to remove that being chipping seal off of the roadway, and we will be putting grindings down similar to what we did on government roads. There will be staff time and staff equipment, and the grindings will come from the highway project, which we're currently working on. So there will not be a cost to complete this.
Thank you.
Okay, are you ready to do 7.4? I'll ask Councillor Reese to leave. And you can,
Yes,
okay,
sorry.
Yeah.
Is Jason here? Would you happen to be on speakerphone? It just seems a little muffled. I just wonder if for the next one, if you just go off speaker, it might sound a little bit better on the speaker.
you tried to. Does it sound better now?
Yeah.
yeah, it does.
Okay, sorry about that.
Yeah, no problem. Just wanted to get you for the next one.
Thank you. Is Councilor Reese?
Yeah,
out of the room?
he's out of the room, so you can go ahead, Corey.
Thank you. This project regarding the water valve replacements was noted on a water main break that we had on Calgary Hill. RBC throughout the winter that there were 2 valves which weren't functioning properly. What this unfortunately caused is that by not being able to isolate these valves, we had to shut off several businesses and residents throughout the area. Being able to isolate the water main system is a crucial component to our maintenance and flushing, especially when we have breaks and we have to shut down certain areas for either low water or low water pressure. And unfortunately, in this case, due to the valves not functioning properly, we ended up having to shut off water to several areas. So the request was put to place these 2 valves in this capital budget that was approved. Through the RFP process, we only received 1 proposal, which was from Provo. The proposal to replace the valves came within budget. I would like to note the budget was for $80,000. However, the proposal was at $91,000, but this is because the asphalt patch, which was estimated in our operating budget from our water break that occurred, was approximately $15,000 to repair. So a portion of this would be coming out of the operating budget, and then the rest would be through capital budget. So I'm recommending that council approve the 1 proposal we received by J. Provo Contracting to move forward and repair these 2 water valves in the system so that we can continue to properly operate and maintain our system when required to do any repairs or flushing that we need.
Okay, any questions from council?
If I may, Mayor.
Yes.
If we went and did 7.5 while Corey was on the phone, in case Corey wants to answer any of council's questions regarding the water meter issue.
Sure. So Corey, we're going to move to 7.5. It's the water meter question with regards to 37 Trailer Park. Staff may have read the memo. Oh, sorry, we need to get Mr. Reese back. So we're going to be dealing with 7.5, the water meter complaint. Maury, did you want to give some background to that prior to debate by council?
After a discussion with Mrs. LaChapelle, is it Mrs. LaChapelle?
Yes.
St. Pierre, regarding the water meter issue at Park and not having the resident accept my final decision after review of the matter with staff, including our director and the water meter staff the water staff that we have. In our bylaw, our water supply bylaw, every resident has the right to appeal a decision of the director and CAO to council. Therefore, Mrs. LaChapelle wrote to council stating that she would like council's reconsideration to have the municipality pay for a damaged, cracked water meter located at 37 Trailer Park. So that's the background to why this is being put forward to council, and I believe council's received a copy of that letter, and Corey has written a report in response to that request. And in essence, staff still is of the opinion and recommends to council that we see no fault with the municipality. This was not something that the municipality was responsible for. Therefore, as set out in our water supply bylaw and past practice, the homeowner is responsible to replace any meter that is in disrepair or is in non-working function. So that staff recommendation, and Corey has sent out a memo to council setting out the background on this matter.
So the question would be whether or not council wants to set aside its own policies and pay for half that. Could be setting a precedent. So I imagine probably this first one that's come to council, to my knowledge, regarding this. So I saw Mitch's hand first.
What I don't understand is she complained about having her water meter under her trailer. Is that not where all the water meters go for a trailer?
Corey, please supplement me if I'm incorrect, but as I understand the trailer park, some meters were put under trailers and some meters would put inside trailers. It is recommended inside, but in some instances, I understand, but this is anecdotal, as the staff of the municipality that were here at the time the water meters were installed. None of those staff are here any longer. So as we understand in examining this, if a homeowner wouldn't grant the municipality or the contractor hired at the time to go into the trailer, then they would put under the trailer. But neither Corey and I can speak to 37 Trailer Park to answer council's questions about how did the meter end up where it is. Unless, Corey, you want to add more to that.
I don't really have much to add. It is the responsibility to ensure that there is no damage to the meter caused by frost or freezing, etc. I do agree that some were installed under the trailer as they had to be, and I understand some of those accesses were through crawl spaces, and that there's a potential freeze to occur. All I can really refer to on that was the signed off work order regarding that at that moment in time, the municipality and contractor are waived from any damages caused by such. But as you had mentioned, unfortunately, not all meters can be installed inside trailers where there is guaranteed heat.
Pat, you had a question?
Yes, I'm just going to open a can of worms here. The trailer park is a private park, isn't it?
Yes.
Why shouldn't the owner of the park be responsible for these meters? Like, I don't understand why we don't have one meter and the water goes to the park and then the park owner divides the water rates up, whatever. I don't know why we're in that park personally.
Is
You
that how
went
it's
through
done,
that
Pat?
already.
I think that came up to council years ago. Corey, I understand that each trailer has their own meter.
Yeah, that's correct.
So there isn't a meter, like one meter that records all the water going in, and then the owner uses the information from the meters on each individual trailer to assess the cost. So if you have one tenant using twice as much water as another, I know that was the issue that when it came up to council, it was how would the owner of the park be able to ascertain what the proper
So what
cost
does the
for water
apartment
was.
building do?
Pardon?
How does the apartment building owner divvy the water?
In those particular cases, it's just the 1 meter.
What's the difference in private?
There wasn't.
Building.
This was considered by council, and I guess at the time it was recommended that they do it.
So should the owner of the park be responsible for this meter, or should the person of the trailer be responsible for this meter?
The way it was written up, it would be each trailer owner was responsible. According to each trailer owner, I'm assuming each trailer owner gets a water bill based on that meter.
I
Oh,
can
wow.
answer that.
Yes.
Yes, however, all the water bills go to the owner of the property. So they receive the bill. It is in the name and the owner of the property is responsible. And then that owner distributes the bills based on each meter to the residents. The residents can make arrangements with the municipality to pay the municipality directly. There's a form that they can fill out where any tenant, whether it's an apartment or the trailer park, can make arrangements for us to bill directly. However, in this case, that the owner is ultimately responsible for any non-payment of water. That is on the property owner. So in the legislation and in our water supply bylaw, if a tenant didn't pay their water bill, there's not much the municipality can do about it. We can't go into private property. And under the act, we can only add the non-payment of the bill, the amount, to the tax bill. So the tax bill's in the name of the owner of the property. I don't know if Mr. Shaso, I'm looking at Mr. Shaso, I'm not sure of the history of why council supported the purchase of the meters, but as I understand, they did years ago in the trailer park at the request of all the residents of the trailer park and the owner, so that each individual unit could have a more accurate reading of what their share of the water cost would be.
Yeah, but that was supposed to go back to the owner of the park, not to the municipality. They wanted the meters, but they don't get overcharged by the owner. I guess it's got a portion out.
What-
The
wasn't
question
there-
here then is who owns the meters?
Well, my opinion here is if the customer has a meter is paying to the township, we're still not responsible because it's still private property.
But that person that has a meter right now is paying the owner.
The owner, yes.
So if that meter goes, then the owner should replace the meter.
And what I can't speak to, Councillor Tate, because you have an excellent point, is that I don't know the agreement between the owner of the property and the tenant. I don't know if the owner has an agreement in their lease with the tenant that sets out that the tenant is responsible, but ultimately, the meter on each individual trailer park, as I understand it, is responsible of that individual trailer owner. But you have a point, but it's a point of something I can follow up on with the owner of the property.
But can we retract and go back to the agreement? Is that an agreement or policy?
Well, our policy is our water supply bylaw, and it's written that the owner is responsible to pay, and that the owner is responsible to replace a meter that is no fault of the municipality, they must pay. But on a technical issue around who owns the meter in an actual trailer home in the park, I would have to come back to council with response to that.
I'd like to know that answer.
And
Yeah, one of the considerations of, I'm trying to think back to when we made that decision, because I was on council then. There was a grant program that assisted the municipality with putting meters into every home. And one of the arguments being made was, as residents of the trailer park, why couldn't they take advantage of the grant program, have a meter so that they pay what they use, as opposed to being just equally divided between the total number of properties. And that would be the same as every other resident in the community. So
Why didn't the owner buy the meters, install them? Because it's in a private park. And that way it would be fairly distributed amongst the trailers.
Adult grant.
Yeah, well, the grant money could have went to meters for the owner, not the individual trailers. And the owner
It didn't say owners, it said, how did that work?
I can only respond to that Corey's attached to his report a copy of the water meter service order, and each water meter service order was signed by the trailer owner. So the leasee of the trailer park lot. Each work order was signed by the owner at the time the meter was installed. So I can only assume that means they signed off on where the meter was located, assuming responsibility for the meter. And I'm sorry, I'm not sure.
I council actually to deal with the specific question, which comes down to whether we pay for half of that to replace that meter, or that we support staff and just follow through with that. So really it's we just give direction to staff here. Are we in agreement with the position taken by staff, and we can support that?
Yes.
Okay, so that's your back. Okay, we've got 4 out of 5, so we'll take that. But in terms of more information on this particular thing, as Councillor Tate has asked for more information, we will certainly look for more information, so that if issues come up like this in the future, we will have better background to be able to deal with it.
Make the policy a little more suitable for everybody.
I just want to remind councillors, we're all further away and we're trying to pick up our voices here. So when you're speaking, if you could be a little louder than what you might normally be. So we're going to move back to Corey. Thank you, and good night. I know you have things to get to, so thanks for your input. We'll move to 7.1. Alex, thank you for waiting. So if you want to talk about COVID-19 and your monthly report, go right ahead.
Sure, thanks very much. Can everybody hear me okay?
Loud and clear, thank you.
Right on. Okay, so I think the thing that's on the forefront of folks' minds, especially as we get closer to September, is the reopening of the community center. So right now, I'm working on a second version of our plan, and what I've done for council is I've laid out essentially 3 versions of how we're going about this planning process. So we've completed the first version of the plan, which was essentially our review of all of the guiding documents that exist. And by the time we were done, we were probably into 25 or 26 guiding documents that represented guidance from Hockey Canada and Skate Ontario and Curling Ontario and some of the specific organizations that we would call the governing bodies of a lot of the sports that happen at the community center. But in that, we also guidance for some of the Recreation Facilities Association, some of the public health and safety organizations. And that compilation ended up being about 25 pages. And that was essentially going through all these documents and copying and pasting a lot of the relevant sections to the community center to one document. So we had a good foundation for the next version, which is what I'm currently working on. So V2 is essentially taking all of those recommendations and developing them into specific procedures for the community center. So for example, some of the recommendations are that different users use different entrances and exits. So what that means for the community center is hockey will be using the south hallway doors and dance might be using the lobby doors. Those are the specifics that we're getting into in the second version of the plan. So I'm pretty close to finishing it. I'm about 14 pages in, and that lays out some of the general guidelines for use of the facility, as well as the specific guidelines for certain areas of the facility. What we're going to do with that plan is we're going to take that and give that version to the user groups for comment. So what we're looking for is their opinion on whether they think some of these procedures will work or not. Because at the end of the day, this is something that relies just as much on the municipality, making sure that we've got all of our procedures in place, as it does rely on the user groups, making sure that they're following procedures and that they're looking at their own guiding documents and making sure they're following them as well. So we're expecting that consultation is going to go into the start of September. Give a couple of weeks to comment on that. I've had some meetings already with user groups, but to have a formal meeting with each user group to ensure that they fully understand, as well as have the opportunity to provide us with their feedback. And then that second version basically is the foundation for a third version, which is now that we've got all the procedures laid out, we need to figure out how much time all of that is going to take, and we're going to need to create a schedule based on not only the time that our new procedures are going to take,
Excuse me, Alex?
Yeah.
I'm not sure what's going on, but we're getting some kind of feedback, and we're having a very hard time hearing you now. So again, if you're on a speaker, please speak directly into the phone. There's something happening.
Is that a little bit better?
Yeah. Yes, please.
Yeah.
Okay, right on. Sorry, folks.
So sorry, you might want to back up a little bit.
Sure. Okay. So I was talking about the second version of this, which is the procedures transforming into the facility scheduling. So in our opinion, the facility scheduling is, of course, going to have to happen after folks have some of the registration numbers and information. So for us, the challenge is to develop those procedures and to develop basically a timeline for how long each of those procedures is going to take and integrate them into what we would normally have as our facility schedule. So that's the future version of the plan, and that'll really be the final document and the high-level approach that we're taking to ensure a safe return to the community center. So we're still looking at relatively the same timelines. We're hoping to get that information from user groups as well as all of their feedback compiled by the start of September, so first to second week. And then from the second week of September, be able to develop a full facility schedule that takes into account all of the additional cleaning we need to do and takes into account each of the user groups and the buffer times that we're going to now require between users to ensure that we have a safe return to the community center. So that's the gist of it. That's the general direction that we're following. I have been asked to share that document and those documents with other municipalities around the community. So that document in draft form, as well as the first version, will go to a lot of the other rink managers as well, with a big caveat on it that every rink is different and folks need to understand that they're going to need to make their own procedures for their own facilities. Any questions on that?
No, that's good. Looking forward to seeing that document. Sorry, we did have one question from Councilor Hatfield.
Corey, have you given out those?
That's Alex, not Corey.
Sorry, Alex. Did you hand out those papers to other communities?
Not yet, no, but that's the direction that we're going, is to try and share that information.
So you don't know what other communities are doing yet?
I have done a little bit. So most of the other communities that are smaller like ours, they're in exactly the same boat that I am. So when I call the other rink managers, up and down the North Shore and Chapleau, they're basically in the same spot as us. They're reviewing the documents. They're trying to figure out what they're going to do with their arenas. So we've done some information sharing there. I have also had the chance to review some of Sault Ste. Marie's documentation. Now, of course, they have a lot different of a situation because they have additional staff, they have dedicated cleaning staff, but they are also, even though they have reopened one facility, in my opinion, they're also in the infancy of really developing these procedures, and they'll only really get to a much more developed point probably at the same time we do, towards September, when they really see that additional usage come up.
Thank you.
Okay, Corey, sorry. Yeah, you got me doing it. Alex, you could carry on with your report for the month of July.
Sure. So I'm not going to mention too much more because we've already gotten in her pretty good, but a little bit of a mention about the marina. So we worked on the fish cleaning hut. We've done some beautification there. We've also been working through a lot of the kinks that have come with the new sticker system, and we're going to continue to work out those kinks as we implement the system and as we see new things come up. We also worked with a group of users who were interested in dredging the entry to the marina. So it's a decision that the municipality took last year to not pursue dredging. This group took it on themselves, and so we helped them by doing things like applying for a work permit and helping coordinate a contractor. At this point, it looks like that work is going to be done before the Wawa Salmon Derby at essentially no cost to the municipality besides some of my own staff time. So that's been a pretty positive interaction between user groups and the municipality. Other than that, we still have been doing our normal activities in terms of keeping up on maintenance on the parks and things like that. We did have a little bit of vandalism that shut down Alliance Beach House for a couple of days, but we got it reopened this afternoon, and I'm about to send a press release out just letting people know. And then for next month, we're essentially just packing all of our summer stuff in and getting ready to reopen the community center. And that's really going to be the focus in August, is to tie up some of the loose ends in the parks and ensure that we are ready to go at the community center for September and whatever that may bring with us.
Alex, what role is the municipality taking on for the Salmon Derby?
So we've essentially, we've compiled a list, and I've had conversations with the operator regarding how the Salmon Derby is going to work. We have essentially made to the operator the recommendation that they must contact Algoma Public Health and speak to them about how they're doing the Derby. I've also spoken to Algoma Public Health about the Derby in particular. They aren't overly concerned about it, specifically because they've encouraged that type of use as a really good thing, right? If everybody's in their own boats out on the lake, then everybody's separate and getting out in nature, and that's quite good for folks. So they didn't have any huge concerns when I talked to them about it. Other than that, the Derby has changed quite a lot this year. It's my understanding that there's no meal and there's no bar and things like that. So it's really just going to be fishing, in which case we're doing essentially our normal marina operations, just with more users.
Good, thank you. Are there any? Councillor Tate has a question for you, Alex.
Yeah, the question would be, I was listening to that so much I forgot. Sorry. I'll think of it after. I'll ask you.
Okay, he'll get back to you with his question. So
No problem.
we're running a little bit behind schedule here. We've got one more item, that's 7.6. Sorry, thank you, Alex. That's the CEO site plan application with Superior Aggregates. I don't know if Chief Gauthier and Mr. Remainin are on the line. Are we calling them?
Yeah, I'm on the line there.
I'm also on the line.
Okay.
Chief Gauthier.
Welcome. Thank you. We're going to start a discussion on this. Maury, if you could just give council an overview of what you're working on with the gentleman from the company.
Okay, thank you. And thank you, Chief Gauthier and Mark, for being patient as we get through a heavy agenda tonight. So I have a report for council, which is in respect to an application for a site plan approval with Superior Aggregates Corporation. So the report tonight to council is trying to explain the reason why a site plan agreement is being requested, and how we've been working with Mr. Remainin and the company representatives to work very closely together to come up to an agreement that needs to go to council at the next regular agenda for hopefully approval, because this is a condition that the Ontario Municipal Board set out in a hearing regarding the harbor area over 10 years ago, when the property was rezoned and official plan amendments made to allow the property to be used for a trap rock quarry operation, which the proponents wish to move forward with sooner than later. So in the municipal zoning bylaw and official plan documents, the following is set out, and this was set out by the OMB, which council adopted within its zoning bylaw when it approved its zoning bylaw in 2015, that the property that we're talking about, the harbor wharf area, in the zoning bylaw on pages 76 to 77, I've cut out that section for council. So notwithstanding the zoning bylaw, the lands that are denoted with a star 40, which is the subject property we're dealing with, which is only the wharf area, which if you've looked at my report is the area outlined in yellow. Uses permitted in that zone include transporting, stockpiling, storage, loading, and shipping of mineral, aggregate resources, and other products, goods and materials, and accessory uses. There is a holding designation on that particular property, and to remove that holding designation, the owner must come do a number of things for the municipality, of which one is to enter into a site plan agreement. So to enter into that site plan agreement is paramount, so that the company can request council to remove the holding so it can move forward with its business. Now, I know this sounds complicated, but my report hopefully explains it a little more simpler, and I'll continue on with the point that the site plan agreement is a requirement so they can move forward to remove the zoning holding designation, which will come to council on September 15th as a public hearing, and these both items hopefully approved so the company can start to use the wharf area for business purposes. The regulations were adopted, and the owner is looking to use the wharf area for storage and transportation, and entering into agreement with the council to remove the H designation. So on June 12th, Superior Aggregates, as represented by Mark Remainin, submitted an application for council to consider site plan approval of the harbor wharf area. The lands under consideration do not include the lands to. So on the map that's attached to my report, the hatched area are lands that the Ministry of Natural Resources, through an approved aggregate resource license that has been approved, they deal with the owner on any of the applicable regulations under the Aggregate Resource Act, because that's where the actual coring, blasting, processing will take place. The wharf area is basically being used for the storage and transportation of the material. So this application, it's very important that council understand, we don't have authority under the site plan agreement to put any conditions on the area that is subject to the aggregate resource license. So our draft site plan control agreement is attached to this report review. And just to highlight some of the requirements and conditions and paragraphs that we're suggesting in our site plan agreement include matters such as this, that the existing access route to the site will remain, and a gate and proper signage will be erected at the entrance of the site to advise the public that it's private property and not to enter. No municipal garbage or fire protection services will and can be provided to the private property. The access routes on the private property in this area are far below municipal road standards and present a hazard at this time to employees and equipment. Now, in the future, the municipality can work with the owner or improved that providing services at that time, but currently we will only be providing fire services up to wise, so the Harbor Road where it wise to this property and wise nation, that's where our services have to stop. Number 3, there are a number of electrical required on the site, are Inc. And will work with the owner and on the existing lines and any new lines requested at the time. There are 5 site plans that council has. It's a site plan, different site plans. So those are site plans submitted as part of this application. And on that, it denotes what buildings, what structures, where the wharf is located, where an office is located. So it sets out all the site conditions, the leveling, the water lots, the roadways. So that is what's being approved with this site plan agreement. And any new buildings on the site will require an amendment to any approved site plans in the future. So we're approving what's on those site plans today. But if the owner wants to request council for any changes to those plans, they have to come back to council to ask for amendment to the site plan. The owner will put a combination of perimeter signage and berms as during the OMB hearing and on the site plans, there was no legal regulatory requirement for the owner to put fencing around this particular site. And so the owner, and we've discussed this, will put some signage, some berms to stop vehicles from accessing the site where required, to make sure that unauthorized persons don't enter the site, especially during any periods of blasting or hazardous operations. Some rock material will be transported by ship and some via roads. Although it's outside the scope and the authority of this site plan agreement, staff is recommending that a separate agreement be required with the owner to provide and adhere to a transportation plan. So a plan that will set out any municipal requirements should there be any damage to our municipal roads by heavy equipment or by vehicles that might be heavy, have heavy loads that travel on municipal roadways. I have talked to the owner, and the owner is agreeable to working out something. So if there are damage to our roads, that we can come to agreement to fix them. But for the site plan agreement under the Planning Act, this is outside the scope of what council can approve in this site plan agreement. So those are just some high level details of what's included in the site plan agreement. The site plan agreement, once approved by council, will get registered on site in the land titles office, and it will be a requirement for any owner, any mortgage holder, or any users of the land to abide by what we set out in the site plan agreement. So the staff, in conclusion, have been reviewing this site plan, working with Mark and his team over the past couple of months. We've had discussions and input from Algoma Power, from the Ministry of Natural Resources, and I will continue to work with the proponents to prepare a final site plan agreement to be put forward to council on September 15th. And Mr. Mayor, if you would allow me, I would like to then turn it to Mark and Chief Gauthier. They may have something to add.
Absolutely. I just want to say first that I want to thank you, Maury, for all the work that you're doing on behalf of the municipality. I think as a council, we want to see this operation moving forward. And I think it's extremely important that we're very thorough. We do our due diligence and make sure that there are no procedural roadblocks because we've overlooked something. So thank you for your thoroughness. And I'll now open up to Mr. Remainin or Chief Gauthier. If you'd like to speak to council and make a comment, please go ahead.
Yeah, I'm Mark Remainin, and like I said, we've been working with Maury the last few months, and we actually been working for the last 4 years trying to get it moved. And basically what we're looking for is we want to move quicker than slower now. We took over this problem 2017, and we're there now.
Thank you. Chief Goetze, comment?
I don't have too much. I'm going to echo some of Mark's comments, but looking forward to working with the mayor and council as I have in the past.
Well, thank you, and looking forward to working with you and up and running. Maury, what timelines do you have for us as council? You're bringing back at which meeting?
If there are any issues that require the attention of council, I'll bring back this item to next week's special council meeting. But the site plan agreement cannot be approved till a regular meeting of council, when the next regular meeting of council is scheduled for September 15th. At the same time, a public meeting notice is going out, as the applicant has also applied for the removal of the H designation. So on September 15th, we will do both at the same meeting, of course, subject to council's approval.
Once the site plan agreement is approved, is there any further waiting period after that, or it's in effect immediately after approval?
Yeah,
Okay.
but the H designation removal follows the Planning Act, similar to a zoning bylaw amendment. There would be a 20-day appeal period. So the removal of the H designation is exactly like the zoning bylaw amendment. So that has to follow the process of public notice, hearing, and appeal period. But on the site plan agreement, that is specifically council's prerogative and does not require notice or appeal time.
Good, thank you.
I have a question.
Yes, Councilor Hatfield?
Mr. Remainin, can you hear me?
Let's speak up a little louder.
Mr. Remainin, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah.
Could you give me some idea how big a blast you want to do at one time? What size of rock you want, and what are you going to do with the oversized rock?
Yeah, we actually drilled and blasted last year, and there won't be any blasting done this year. The next blast would probably be next spring.
And how big a blast do you want to do at one time, do you know?
We did about 125,000 tons each time. So we got about 250,000 tons blasted right now.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So if there are no further questions, we'll just move on. I want to thank Chief Goetze and Mr. Remainin for participating, and we look forward to seeing your operation up and running. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We'll see you in September.
For sure. Thank you.
Bye.
Okay, thanks.
Good night.
Good night.
So moving to number 8, there's no in-camera session. There's no business arising from the closed session. Our next meeting is September 15th. And I moved by Councillor Hatfield that we close the meeting. All in favor? It's carried. Close at 8:04. People need a 5-minute break before we?
If I can read quickly, maybe we could have the break when we go from regular to in camera, but of
Okay.
course.
Yeah,
if you want a
okay,
break,
yeah,
we should-
let's take a break when we go to in camera. Is that good? Okay, so I'll call a meeting to order. Note all members present, disclosure of pecuniary interests. I
Yes,
think we have one.
I, Councillor Robert Rees, declare potential deemed pecuniary interest on item 10.2, water valve replacement.
Duly noted, thank you. We have a resolution to approve the agenda.
Resolved that I was trying to go too fast, excuse me. Moved by Councillor Tate, seconded by Councillor Hatfield, resolved that the agenda for the regular meeting of council scheduled for Tuesday, August 11th, 2020 be approved as presented.
All in favor? Carried, thank you. There's no delegations, presentations, announcements. Please note that we have a special council meeting on August 18th and the cancellation of the Tuesday meeting, and the next would be on September 15th, along with a corporate planning meeting 15th. We have a resolution to adopt the minutes.
Moved by Councillor Chasson, resolved that the following minutes of the meeting as presented. Minutes of a regular meeting of council held on Tuesday, July 14, 2020, as contained and inclusive of the minute book.
All in favor? It's carried. To moving number 7, can we have a resolution?
By Councillor Tate, second by Councillor Reese, resolved that the items on agenda, item 7.3, be approved as recommended.
All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. 8 point staff reports or resolution.
Moved by Councillor Tate, resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the Municipality of Wawa does hereby receive the following reports, a copy of which are attached here too. AP 2020-10 report for the month of July 2020, CS 2020-08 report for the months of June and July 2020, CS 2020-09, RFP 2020-04 airport fuel system upgrade, CS 2020-10, RFP 2020-05 water valve replacement, and CAO 2020-04 site plan application sphere aggregates.
All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. Number 9, business arising, approve corrective action resolution.
Moved by Councillor Chason, seconded by Councillor Reese. Whereas Council received a report of the Integrity Commissioner dated July 14, 2020, and whereas the report made specific recommendations regarding the Integrity Commissioner's findings, that based on the balance of probability, Councillor Hatfield contravened the Municipal Code of Conduct, bylaw number 3173-19. Now therefore be it resolved, the Corporation of the Municipality of Wawa hereby enacts the following corrective action as recommended by the Integrity Commissioner in the report. Number 1, that pursuant to the penalty provisions contained in section 4.5.8 of the Code of Conduct, Council hereby directs that Councillor Hatfield review Council Staff Relations Policy HR-024, bylaw number 3174-19, and the Code of Conduct for Council and Board Committee Appointments Policy HR-017, bylaw number 3173-19, and then sign a form of acknowledgement confirming that she has reviewed these documents, understands them, and agrees to comply with them during her remaining term on council.
Any questions or comments? Okay. All in favor? It's carried. New business, accept staff recommendation, airport fuel system upgrade resolution.
Moved by Councillor Reese, seconded by Councillor Hatfield, whereas the Municipality of Wawa issued a request for proposals for the replacement of the airport AV gas fueling station, and whereas 3 proposals were received and reviewed by 3 municipal staff, now therefore be resolved that the Council Corporation of the Municipality of Wawa does hereby accept the recommendation as contained in staff report CS 2020-09 airport fuel system upgrade, and award the proposal from Northwest Petroleum Limited to undertake the airport AV gas fuel system upgrade project for the removal of an in-ground system and apparatuses and the installation of a new above-ground fuel system and apparatuses at a total cost of $169,497.72 plus HST.
All in favor? It's carried. 10.2, please note that Councillor Reese has left the room. We have a resolution for 10.2.
Moved by Councillor Hatfield, seconded by Councillor Tate, whereas the Infrastructure Services Department water distribution system has 2 identified locations where water main valves are not functioning, and whereas the Municipality of Wawa's water distribution system requires water main shut-off valves to isolate the system, and whereas the Council of the Corporation of Municipality of Wawa approved a capital budget amount of $50,000 for the water main valve replacement located at Broadway, Calvary Hill intersection and Calvary Hill McKinley intersection, whereas staff only received 1 proposal for $91,500 plus HST, and whereas the proposal bid is $41,500 plus HST over the 2020 capital budgeted amount of $50,000 for the project. Now therefore be it resolved that the Council of Corporation of the Municipality of Wawa does hereby accept staff recommendation as contained in report CS 2020-10 and approve the award of RFP 2020-05 water valve replacement to J Provo Contracting Limited in the amount of $91,500 plus HST to undertake the replacement of water main valves located at Broadway, Calvary Hill intersection and Calvary Hill McKinley intersection, and a portion of asphalt paving at $30,000 be transferred from the federal gas tax reserve to the water main valve replacement capital budget, and further that $11,500 be taken from the infrastructure service budget.
Any questions? Yes? All- It's carried, thank you.
Okay.
Come back.
Okay, Robert.
Okay.
There he is.
No, nothing under notice of motion. We have first, second, and third.
Moved by Councillor Tate, seconded by Councillor Hatfield, resolved that the following bylaws be introduced and read a first, second, and third time, and that the mayor sign and seal the same. Any rule of this council standing. Bylaw number 3326-20 to confirm the floods meeting held on the 11th day of August 2020. Bylaw number 3327-20, 3171-19, and appoint a deputy clerk for the municipality of Wawa. Bylaw number 3328-20 to authorize the corporation to enter an agreement with Labby Media Incorporated for the lease of the 96 Broadway Avenue upper floor for a radio station. Bylaw number 3329-20 to adopt municipality of Wawa policy number FT-015 general reserve and reserve funds. Bylaw number 3330-20 to adopt municipality of Wawa policy number FT-018 surplus deficit. Bylaw number 3331-20 to delegate authority to provide marriage solemnization services to Miss Heather Rainville. Bylaw 3332-20 to enter an agreement with the city of Sault Ste. Marie for an intermunicipal service agreement for the transfer of service delivery for all court administration and court support functions under the Provincial Offences Act and prosecutions of matter under parts 1 and 2 of the Provincial Offences Act. Bylaw number 3333-20 to enter an agreement with Tulloch Engineering Incorporated for professional consulting services for the school zone resurface project. And bylaw number 3334-20 to amend bylaw number 2990-16 and to enter into a new Building Canadian Fund, Small Communities Fund agreement with the Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs for the waste disposable site expansion file SCF-581.
Questions? All in favor? It's carried, thank you. We have a motion to go into closed session.
Moved by Councillor Tate, second by Councillor Saison, resolved that this committee proceed in camera at 8:13 p.m. in order to address the following matters pertaining to item number legal issue, item 1 staffing related to personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees.
All in favor? It's carried, thank you. We'll take a 5-minute break because we're
We'll not finish it.
Okay, we return to regular meeting. There's nothing under item 14, business arising for closed session. Our next meeting date is Tuesday, September 15th. And we have a motion to adjourn.
Moved by Councillor Reese, resolved that the meeting be adjourned at 10:19 p.m.
All in favor? It's carried. Thank you very much. Good night. What's that?
That's the right